The first time Ariv saw sunlight after 3 months of lying in the hospital, it didn't feel like a blessing. It felt like a memory too far to chase. His eyes blinked rapidly, unused to the intensity, and his fingers trembled as he tried to lift the thin hospital blanket. The nurse offered him water. His voice was still a whisper when he said, "I shouldn't have survived." But he did. And survival doesn't always feel like victory. Sometimes it feels like punishment. Just 6 months ago, Ariv was a national-level athlete. Track, field, any race he ran, he owned it. The stadiums cheered his name like it was written in thunder. Coaches said he was born with the wind in his veins. But no one saw what was happening off the tracks. No one knew that every medal he brought home was like a nail in the coffin of his dreams. He didn't want fame. He wanted peace. And the one person who gave him that, his mother, was slipping away from cancer while he broke national records. Ariv came home from a championship in Delhi to an empty house. The lights were off, and his neighbor handed him a note. "She didn't want to interrupt your race. She just wanted you to win." She had passed in silence, alone, because she believed in his moment more than her pain. He didn't scream. He didn't cry. He stood still, with his gold medal in his fist, feeling like it weighed more than her absence. For weeks, he didn't speak. He locked himself in, unplugged everything, turned mirrors away from his face. The media said he was mourning. But it was more than that. He was drowning. Depression isn't always loud. Sometimes it's the silence that kills. One night, he left a note on the bed, walked out to the bridge by the river where he used to train barefoot as a boy, and he jumped. The fall didn't end his life. It broke his spine, shattered his legs, and left him paralyzed from the waist down. The world changed in that moment. The athlete was now a patient. The boy who ran faster than time now couldn't feel his own feet. The doctors told him he'd never walk again. Some of them whispered like he was already dead. But one voice was louder than the rest, a girl's voice, full of irritation and unshakable will. Her name was Kiara. She was a volunteer at the rehab center, an artist who painted prosthetics and believed healing was a collaboration. She didn't look at Ariv with pity. She looked at him like he was a math problem she was determined to solve. He hated her the first week. She made him try to grip a spoon, made him hold a pencil, made him draw nonsense with shaking hands. "Why are you wasting your time?" he yelled one day. She didn't flinch. She only said, "Because I see something worth saving." That night, Ariv stared at the ceiling. And for the first time, he cried, not from pain, but from being seen. Recovery wasn't a miracle. It was brutal. It was hours of physiotherapy, needles, stairs, and days where lifting a cup felt like climbing Everest. Ariv had lost his body, but what haunted him was losing his identity. Who was he, if not a runner? Kiara made him build paper planes, do small origami tasks with broken fingers and nerves that screamed. "Build again," she said. "You once built your muscles. Now build your spirit." He began reading again. Books about purpose. Sandeep Maheshwari's stories. Old interviews with paralyzed athletes. One night, he watched a video where a man said, "Your mind can still run, even when your legs can't." That line struck like lightning. So he asked for a laptop. And he began writing. He wrote letters to his mother. He wrote to his younger self. He wrote to every teenager who ever felt like quitting. Words poured from him like races once did. Raw, honest, ugly, beautiful. Kiara read one of his pieces and cried. "You need to share this," she said. He started a blog anonymously. It was called The Boy Who Couldn't Run. Within 3 weeks, it went viral. Students from all over the country started messaging him. A girl from Assam wrote that his story stopped her from harming herself. A boy from Gujarat said he started writing again. Messages became paragraphs. Paragraphs became community. Ariv wasn't running, but he was reaching people faster than he ever had. Months later, he asked Kiara to take him to his old stadium. She wheeled him to the center of the track. He looked at the empty stands, closed his eyes, and whispered, "I'm still here." Kiara said nothing, but she placed a hand over his chest, where his heart still raced. Arif got fitted for high-tech leg braces. The first time he stood again, it wasn't cinematic. He fell. But he laughed, because he knew falling meant he had risen. He began speaking publicly. Schools, colleges, rehab centers. His story wasn't polished. It was messy, filled with pauses, pain, and humor. But he spoke with a voice that was undeniably alive. A documentary team approached him. They asked to film his journey. He agreed, only if they also featured others like him. The film was titled, Still Running. One night, after a speaking event, he rolled up beside Kiara and said, "You didn't just heal me. You helped me rebuild." She smiled and held up a small paper plane. "I just reminded you, you were always meant to fly." He held her hand. "Stay with me, even when I fall again," she replied, "only if you promise to keep standing." They got married under the same tree where he first collapsed during training at 16. His coach was there, in tears. Kiara wore red. He wore braces under a tailored suit. Their vows weren't poetic. They were promises made by two warriors who knew love wasn't always soft, it was steel wrapped in skin. Years later, Arif started a foundation that funded mental health support for athletes. He visited jails, rehab centers, orphanages. He looked into eyes filled with the same kind of ache he once carried, and he gave them a piece of his story. He wrote a book. It hit bestseller charts. But his proudest moment wasn't the book or the fame. It was when a little girl from a village sent him a letter that said, "I can't walk well. But now, I'm not ashamed anymore. Thank you." Arif kept that letter in his wallet. He often sat by the same river where he once tried to end everything. But now, he brought his daughter there. She ran along the bridge, laughing, her mother painting nearby. Arif watched them and whispered to himself, "I chose life. I chose again." This is not the story of a boy who became a star. It's the story of a man who faced his darkest night and chose to become his own sunrise. Because courage isn't the absence of fear. It's what you do after the fall. And love, real love, isn't always fireworks. Sometimes it's someone holding your broken hand, whispering, "Build again."